Hi. After making my first Charge Blade guide video, I thought about it for a little bit and I felt like it would be fun to make a second part. And in the second part, I'm not going to talk about how to play the weapon or anything of that nature, but instead talk about the actual weapon itself in terms of what to forge. Because I know that a lot of people, especially newer players, when they play games like Monster Hunter or Dark Souls, or games that are somewhat similar where there's like a lot of builds and stuff that you can make, people do tend to go online and look up, oh, best build for this and this, right? So I was thinking this video will be a very broad video, and by broad I mean it'll be covering all stages of the game, so early game to end game, and I'll specify how I separate that. But I hope that with this video you can watch it and have like a nice little guide on what to build, so you're not like, oh man, there's so much, there's so many weapons I can make and so many armor I can make, I don't know what to look for, I don't know what to get. Don't worry, I'm here to help you. But before I discuss more, I will warn that there are going to be spoilers, because I will be discussing, like I said, the broad everything in this game, so early game to end game. So I will be discussing monsters that you probably haven't seen yet, but I will push those monsters towards like the end of each of these sections, so that way you can at least watch like the first parts of these sections without any worry. But just do be warned, there's a good chance you might get accidentally spoiled, but I'll do my best to prevent that. But if you do, I am very sorry. As for how I'm going to separate the sections, you might be asking. So I thought about it, and I'm doing it in 3 sections. There's going to be the early game section, the mid game section, and the end game section. The early game section is going to be mainly comprised of the entirety of low rank. I thought about separating the low rank, but because I don't know, I thought about it, I just felt like it'd be easier just to discuss the entirety of low rank. Mid game will be just the entirety of high rank, and end game will be past high rank. And by past high rank, I mean when you reach hunter rank 42 and above, I believe, around there-ish, or hunter rank 40 and above will be like end game. So that's how I'm separating it. Whether or not that's good or not, I'm about to find out for myself. So I hope you enjoy. So let's start with the early game section of the video. So for the early game, there's not too much to make, nor do I think you should make too much, because I don't think that the low rank of Monster Hunter Wilds is so increasingly difficult or incredibly difficult that you need to make all these weapons. But it doesn't hurt to make them, so that when you eventually progress through the game, you have all these weapons already crafted and you can easily upgrade them, because a lot of the weapons that I mention now are also very good when you are able to upgrade them later into the game. So I'm going to do 2 sections, I guess, when it comes to the weapons themselves, because like I mentioned in my first guide video, the Charge Blade has impact files and elemental files. So I'm going to be sort of categorizing it based on that. So first I'll discuss what impact file weapons you should build, and then I'll talk about which elemental file weapons you should build. So to begin with the impact file weapons, the weapon that you start with, the Hope Strong Arm, is fine. It's not bad when you are able to upgrade it for the first time. It comes with speed sharpening, which is an okay skill. Not exactly bad, but not exactly like the most useful skill ever. But you do gain access to the Bone Strong Arm at some point, and that weapon I think is a bit better than the Hope Strong Arm, because it comes with, I believe, a little bit more raw damage, and the skills it comes with are attack boost and load shells. Both skills are really good for Charge Blade and sounds pretty good for early game. Another really good Charge Blade that I used for a little bit myself was the Rompopolo Charge Blade, the Rompo Shielder. This weapon's actually pretty solid. It has a decent raw and nice amount of green sharpness, and poison is always nice. Any status effect is always nice, but poison can be helpful because it does a little bit of tick damage on the monster, so it can help kill them faster. The Rompopolo Charge Blade also comes with guard up level 2, so in any situation where I believe Garnet, they changed how Garnet works in this game, which I actually didn't know until recently. So it seems like guard up just kind of like happens with any shield weapon. It used to be that you needed to have guard up to block any unblockable attacks, but it seems like now it's just kind of built in, and guard up is only there to just reduce the damage instead of giving you access to that ability. Next, we have a really good weapon here, in my opinion. That is the Lala Barina Charge Blade. And the only reason it's really good is because paralysis is really good in this game. And this weapon, when it's fully upgraded, gets pretty gnarly. So I definitely recommend the Lala Barina Charge Blade as soon as possible, and just kind of upgrading that weapon whenever you're able to. That way, when you get to the end game or able to get its fully upgraded form, you're going to be seeing some cool things happen. After that, we have also another pretty solid charge blade, and that's the Nursilla Charge Blade. And what makes this one really good is that the equipment skills on it are actually really solid. Offensive Guard is a really good skill that increases your damage when you block an attack. And Guard is just nice to have in general. So when you're able to start getting these perfect guards down with Charge Blade, that Offensive Guard and that Guard are going to help out so much. Not only that, but it has a really good amount of green, and it has some sleep on it. And sleep is not bad. Not maybe the best, but sleep isn't bad, because then you can, you know, put the monster to sleep, put down some barrel bombs on its face, and just blow them up. Very funny. Next, we do have a spoiler monster, so I'm going to give you that warning right here, that this is a spoiler monster for about part way, I'd say maybe like halfway through the high rank story, or not high rank story, the low rank story. So you are warned. And this monster is the Guardian Rathalos. The Guardian Rathalos Charge Blade is also actually really good, because it comes with 15% affinity, and it has critical element and master's touch, both of which are basically skills that only work with critical hits. So having a weapon that comes with 15% crit is already pretty nice. And now we're going to move on to the Elemental Charge Blades. Now, the thing with the Elemental Charge Blades is that there aren't really many in the game, so it's kind of hard to give an opinion on them, because there's only really one for each element, maybe two. So I'm just going to tell you all the ones that exist, and whether you make them or not, up to you, because like I said, because this is still the launch of the game, there's not that many monsters. As we get more and more monsters, we're going to get way more and more, you know, charge blades, and then we can actually get diversity of choice. But the first, and I believe only Thunder Charge Blade, is the Ray Down Charge Blade. Honestly, a pretty solid charge blade, because it comes with focus, which allows you to charge up your files faster, and load shells, which allow you to charge up more files. Next is the only ice charge blade, the Hirabami Charge Blade. Also pretty decent. Has focus level 2 and airborne, so if you want to do a lot of jumping attacks, not bad. Next, we have the new Udra Charge Blade, and this one looks kind of bad, right? When you look at its stats and you see it has like negative 15% affinity, that's a little bit scary, because affinity is crit rate in this game, and you think, oh man, if it's minus 15, that sounds like it kind of sucks, right? Well, not really, because you can get skills that increase your affinity, so you can basically override that negative 15. So it's not exactly the scariest thing, but I wouldn't say it's like the best fire charge blade. I think there's one you get that's better in Endgame, but we'll get through when we get there. Next, we have the Uth Duna Charge Blade. Also has that negative 15% affinity. However, it does have Power Prolonger, which is a pretty solid skill to have, because it makes your charge shield and axe last longer, basically. So pretty solid skill. And lastly, we do have another spoiler monster here, so I'll let you mute the video or skip ahead to the next section. And so last here we have the Guardian Ebony Odogaron. not a bad charge blade, honestly. It comes with 10% affinity, so it has nice crit rate there, and it has offensive guard level 2. So honestly, not bad, especially because there's not many monsters in this game that are immune or resistant to dragon. I want to say maybe there's like one monster that has some parts of his body that are immune to dragon, but most monsters aren't immune to dragon, so dragon is just kind of like a nice general element. So not a bad charge blade whatsoever. Looking at the low rank armor, there are 4 sets that I recommend. One which isn't spoilery, but the last 3 are kind of spoilery. Well, not kind of, they're very spoilery, and I unfortunately can't do much about that because there's not that many good low rank armor that synergize well with charge blade. So I'd say for low rank, you just kind of make what you want, because it's not super duper like necessary to have like a super crazy armor set when you're in low rank. So, but I'm just gonna tell you what I think is like good if you're kind of like, you know, unsure. And the first armor set I recommend is the Doshagama armor for 2 reasons. One, the set bonus is really nice, the Doshagama's Might, because what it does is when you do a power clash or an offset attack, you get a big damage boost. And secondly, because of the group skill that it has. And this is like a new thing that it seems like that they added into Wilds, which some armor has like a thing called a group skill, which if you look at like the set bonuses and stuff, right, they usually require either 2 pieces to activate the first level or 4 pieces to activate the second level, but group skills just need 3 pieces. And that seems to be true for I think every piece of armor in the game. Maybe not every piece, but I believe at least 90% of the armor sets in the game have like a group skill. And Fortify on the Doshagama armor is pretty good, because what Fortify does is when you die, you get a attack and defense bonus, I believe. And that stacks up to 2 times because you get 3 feints per quest. So overall, just a pretty solid low rank early game armor set. And the equipment skills on are also nice. Free meal is pretty good to have. Now the next armor set I'm going to talk about is spoilery. So the next 3 armor sets I'm going to talk about are spoilery. So if you don't want to hear it, then I recommend you just skip ahead to the next section of the video. With that being said, the next armor set I want to talk about is the Guardian Rathalos armor. And what I like about this armor set is mainly the fact that it has Weakness Exploit. Weakness Exploit is pretty good. It just increases your overall damage, because anytime you hit a weak point or a wound, you just get extra affinity, which, if you don't know, affinity is basically crit rate in this game. And another nice thing is that I think with every single Guardian set, maybe not every single one, I think 1 or 2 of them have a different one, but most of the Guardian sets have a group skill called Wilk Burst. So whenever you're fighting a Guardian monster and they do like that big kind of Wilk attack that makes a bunch of those crystals shoot up from the ground, if you're standing near those, your stamina recovery speed, and if you have taken damage and you have like that red health gauge, then that recovery speed is gonna be increased. So just something nice. As for the set bonus of the Guardian Rathalos armor, it's okay. It's basically just you do extra fire damage when you hit an enemy, so it's kind of whatever. It's cool, I guess, but the Weakness Exploit is really good. Another really good armor set that I think synergizes really well with Charge Blade is the Guardian Ebony Odogaron, and that's because of Burst. And how Burst works is that whenever you do 5 successive hits, so consecutive hits in a row, you get a big stat boost. And what the Ebony Odogaron armor does is that it extends the duration of Burst, of how long Burst stays active, and it gives you an attack boost, or against like a further like attack boost. So pretty good. just overall really good. Just synergizes super duper well with the Charge Blade Savage Axe mode. So if you definitely want just like a nice damage set, then the Guardian Ebony Odo-Garen armor is really good. And it has a little bit of utility with that Wilk Burst, but like I said, the Wilk Burst is kind of like whatever. Or maybe I didn't say that, but if I didn't, then the Wilk Burst is kind of whatever, because it's only really good in the Ruins of Wyveria area, because that's only time you're going to be able to actually activate it, so it's not like super duper necessary. The last set I'll recommend for low rank is the Guardian Archveld set. And the reason I recommend this set is because of two things. Flare, which increases the likelihood of wounding a monster. Basically, it makes it easier to wound them. And two, the Guardian Archveld's armor set bonus, Decimator, I think that's what it's called. Whenever you destroy a wound with like a focus attack, you get a huge health boost. And when you have like the 4-piece bonus, or like the level 2 version of that set bonus, because all the armor sets have like a first, second level and a second level. So when you have like the level 2, you gain like half your health back, almost half. Yeah, I'd say about half your health back from popping a wound. It's kind of crazy, honestly. Definitely a really good armor set to make. And by the time you get to the point in the low rank part of the story where you fight Guardian Archveld, you'll be able to just make the armor like right away. Like you'll have all the parts that you need. So really no reason not to make it. And it's armor, the armor is still really good even in high rank. So definitely just recommend making it and using it even in high rank. But of course I'm still going to recommend some high rank armor and stuff you can make. But if you don't feel like making any high rank armor, the Guardian Archveld armor or the low rank Guardian Archveld armor is really, really good. Alrighty. So now we are in the mid-game section, and I do, like I said, feel kind of bad that the armors of the low rank / early game section are like a bit more spoilery, but like I said, there's just not much in terms of low rank armor that's like good, and nothing you should really worry about, because getting through low rank isn't that hard, and you don't really need to worry too much about getting like super crazy armor in the early game. Mid game is where we kind of start to form our early builds, and the thing with the mid game, which like I said is the entirety of the high rank part of the story, gets a bit confusing, because there's like 3 sections, I guess. There's high rank 9, which is where you unlock your rarity 5 weapons. There's high rank 30, which is, I believe, where you unlock your next tier of weapons. And then there's hunter rank 40, which is where you unlock your last sort of rarity / tier of weapons. So most of the weapons I'll talk about here are going to be like ones that you can access from the get-go. Once you finish the low rank part of the story or in high rank, you can easily get these weapons either by going into like the optional quests and fighting the monsters, or by going into the open world and finding them chilling in a pond or something, pooping. I don't know. But with that said, the first weapon I'll talk about on the impact file side is surprisingly the Hope Strongarm. So the Hope Strongarm 4, which I believe is the one you can make from the get-go, is honestly not bad. It actually has decent stats, and it comes with critical eye level 1. So honestly not a bad option for early high rank. Another surprisingly decent option is the Chupacabra Charge Blade. It's got decent stats, and it has a defense bonus, which is nice, but it also gets artillery. And artillery is a really solid skill to have on Charge Blade, because artillery boosts the damage of your files. So, pretty good. Is it necessary? I don't think it's as necessary to have as it was in previous games, only because in previous games you had armor that had artillery built into it, and I don't think any of the armor in this game has artillery on it, so it's a little hard to build artillery. You kind of have to do it with either the weapon skills or through decoration, so that's why I'm not like super duper recommending it. But the Chupacabra Strongarm is not bad. Next, we have the Rathian Charge Blade, and this is a weapon that I have been personally using, mainly because it has critical status, which, like critical element, increases like the elemental damage or the status like buildup. So critical status will increase the status buildup whenever you do a crit. And the Rathian Charge Blade has already built in 15% affinity. But what I really like about this weapon is the poison duration up. Why that's good, in my opinion, is that when you have the skill Foray, it increases your damage and affinity, I believe, whenever a monster is poisoned or paralyzed. So having a weapon like the Rathian Charge Blade with poison duration up means that you can have that skill basically turned on for a longer period of time. It's actually pretty solid, in my opinion. After that, I'd say all of the impact charge blades I mentioned in the early game section, you can all just upgrade them, right? So like the Lalabarina Charge Blade, the Rompopolo Charge Blade, the Nursilla, etc. You can just upgrade those and continue using them. I'm just kind of telling you like what you have access to now and anything that kind of catches my eye. So with the elemental charge blades of the mid game, it's honestly pretty much the same as I mentioned in the low rank / early game part, in that there's not that many elemental charge blades in the game. So it's kind of hard to like give you an opinion on them because you can basically craft all of them. However, there are two different fire charge blades, and those are the new Udra and the Rathalos Charge Blade. Like I said, I don't think the new Udra Charge Blade is as good because the Rathalos Charge Blade I think is a little bit better. Mainly because it comes with critical boost level 3 and it has some built-in crit with it. So critical boost basically just increases the damage of your critical hits. So if you're able to get a critical element decoration and with critical boost level 3 on the Rathalos Charge Blade, you're going to be hitting pretty hard with this weapon if you can crit it. But you're also free to use any of the previously mentioned elemental charge blades because, like I said, there's not many in the game. But between the Rathalos and the new Udra, I'd say the Rathalos Charge Blade is a little bit better, in my opinion. So looking at the mid-game / high rank armor, I have 6 sets to look at. 3 of them you can get from the start of the game. 2 of them you can only get when you're hunter rank 21. And the last one you can only get when you're hunter rank 30. So just kind of keep that in mind. And a second thing to keep in mind is if you're somebody who's new to the game, right? And you reach high rank and you notice like there's alpha and beta armor sets and you're like, what the hell does that mean? The alpha armor sets, what they tend to have is more built-in armor skills. So they tend to have like higher levels of armor skills, but they don't have, they either have like no decoration slots or lower level decoration slots. Whereas with the beta armor sets, they tend to have less built-in armor skills or just lower level. But the trade-off is that they tend to have more decoration slots or like higher level decoration slots. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're, since this is like the mid-game / early high rank-ish section, well, not early high rank-ish, but high rank section, you're not gonna really have any decorations or a lot of them at this point. So I'd say that for all of these armor sets I'm going to talk about, I'm going to be mainly talking about the alpha armor set because you're not going to really have any decorations to make a build at this point, right? So don't worry too much about it. Just make the alpha armor set, and then whenever whenever you get some decorations to slot in and actually start making a full build, then you can start crafting the beta stuff. But for now, just the alpha armor is good. With that being said, the first armor set I'm going to talk about is the Chotacabra armor, because with the Chotacabra armor, the alpha set, it offers weakness exploit level 2. So just nice thing to start with. Very good. Oh, and before I forget, my bad. Another thing that I actually didn't notice until kind of right now as I'm like talking and looking is that the alpha and beta armor sets, their group skills are actually different. But the group skills, I wouldn't worry about too much. I'm just kind of mentioning it in case like somebody sees, like also notices that, but like realizes I didn't mention anything and they get mad at me. But the group skills are kind of just like extra icing on the cake. They're not really like super, or maybe just, they're like the cherry on top, right? They're not like necessary, but they kind of like are nice to have. I don't know if that's a good analogy, but that's what I'm going with. Anyways, the alpha and beta armors have different group skills. Don't worry about it too much, right? I wouldn't focus on the group skills in terms of building. Just think of them as like extra sweet candy to the good armor. I'm really bad at making analogies, but anyways, the Chupacabra armor is really good. The next armor set I'm going to talk about is the Lalabrina armor. And what makes the Lalabrina armor good is the skill Foray. What does the skill Foray do? It increases your attack and affinity whenever you inflict a monster with poison or paralysis. So unfortunately, if you're going to be using the Lalabrina armor, you do need to be using a poison or paralysis weapon. The next armor is actually a direct upgrade to the Lalabrina armor, because the Lalabrina armor only has level 3 Foray out of 5, whereas the Rathian armor has level 5 Foray. So you might be wondering, why'd you even recommend the Lalabrina armor then? Well, because Rathian is kind of annoying. So if you're somebody who's having a lot of trouble fighting Rathian, and you're like, this monster just sucks pee-pee to fight, then the Lalabrina armor is a just nice alternative, or an easier alternative to the Rathian armor. But if you can farm the Rathian armor, I'd say farm the Rathian armor, because level 5 Foray is a pretty solid boost. The next two armor sets, like I mentioned, are only available at Hunter Rank 21. And the first one is the Guardian Ebony Odogaron armor. Like I mentioned in my low rank armor section, the burst skill and the Ebony Odogaron set bonus that like increases the duration of burst and gives you an extra damage or extra attack boost on top of it, just insanely good. So I don't really need to repeat myself too much here. It's just burst is really good. The burst boost set bonus from the Ebony Odogaron set bonus skill is really good. It's really good. Make it right now. The next also pretty solid set is the Guardian Rathalos set, because the alpha version gives you weakness exploit level 5, which gives you pretty much 50% affinity whenever you hit a weak point, or whenever you hit a weak point with a wound. Kind of crazy. You just get a lot of crit rate. Pretty good. The last armor set for the mid-game / high rank section is, I'm going to recommend, you can only get at Hunter Rank 30, and that is the ever so illustrious Jin Dahad armor set. And two reasons for this. Well, three actually. The first one, which is smaller, is that this comes with level 2 weakness exploit, so very nice. The second one, which is a bit bigger, is it comes with level 5 Agitator. And Agitator is really good, because what Agitator does is that whenever a monster becomes mad, so you know, whenever they usually like roar and sometimes their body kind of changes a little bit when they get angry, you gain basically extra damage and affinity. Just really nice. And it's really easy to make monsters angry in this game, or in any game. You just kind of, you know, smack them around a bit. And I think, I don't know if there's actually a way in Wilds to purposefully cause Agitator to like proc, because in Monster Hunter World you would do like the Clutch Claw and like smack them 3 times or whatever, and the monster would immediately start, you know, get agitated or enraged. So that's what made Agitator really good in Monster Hunter World, was that it was really easy to turn the skill on. But in Wilds, I don't know, but it's always good just to have, because whenever a monster gets angry, you just basically get more damage. But the last thing which makes the Jin Dahad armor good is the set bonus. And what the set bonus is, or what it does, is that whenever you do a power clash, or if you recover from any sort of the like, or yeah, whenever you recover from any sort of like the statuses that like pin you down, so like if you get like hit with like webs and you get like webbed up, or if you get hit with like any ice attacks that like freeze you to the ground, or if you get pinned, or like I said, if you do power clash, you gain an attack boost, kind of similar to Doshagama's, but it has like that extra kind of utility with like the with like those binding status effects. So really solid set actually, and I definitely recommend it for the Agitator. It's really good in general. So yeah. Alrighty, for the last section of this video, well, second to last probably, or yeah, anyways, the endgame section of the video, I don't have much to say other than you know, fully up at this point. You'll be done with the high rank part of the story, and you'll be able to fully upgrade all your weapons. So any weapon that you have or that I mentioned previously, just fully upgrade it. But for basically the new stuff, right, the new stuff you get access to at this point, which is like Hunter rank 40, there's the Gore Magala charge blade. A pretty solid charge blade, has 20% affinity, has a lot of white sharpness, and it has critical element level 3. So overall pretty solid. The only problem is that Gore Magala is a kind of pain to fight. He's a lot harder than he used to be, that's for sure, and that's really cool. After that, in terms of new stuff, we have the Arcveld charge blade. Also not bad. A bit more of a defensive charge blade because it has guard level 3 built in, which is pretty good. So if you want a charge blade that's like kind of comfy, I say the Arcveld charge blade is definitely your weapon of choice. The Guardian Arcveld charge blade is also not bad. The only problem is that it's got negative 10% affinity, but the trade-off compared to the Arcveld charge blade is that it has a lot more raw damage. So this is definitely the more I want to kill things charge blade. So not bad. But at this point in the game, you're going to be able to fight tempered monsters and also like higher difficulty tempered monsters like tempered Arcveld and tempered Gore Magala. And with that, you'll start to get these relic shards. And with that, you can make the Ardian weapons. Right now, I'm showing the Ardian weapon that I currently have and run. Ardian weapons are just cool because they can either be impact file or elemental file, and you can customize them however you want. So for the elemental file section of the endgame charge blades, I can only really recommend all of the currently available elemental charge blades that you can craft, so like the Raidao, the Uthduna, the new Udra, etc. The Chrono Gear is also pretty good. Now, the only thing that kind of sucks about the Ardian weapons is that they don't come with built-in weapon skills, which makes some of these weapons kind of stronger, in my opinion. Like the Rathian charge blade I mentioned, I think is really good because it has that poison duration up and critical element built in, so really solid. But what the Chrono Gear trades off for that is having 3 level 3 slots. So your customizability / creativity is a little bit more free with the Ardian weapons. And the Ardian weapons can have pretty, I don't know if I'd say in general the Ardian weapons can have higher stats than the craftable weapons, but I believe if you make them as such, you can have Ardian weapons with much higher stats. And if you also get lucky on the Ardian weapon reinforcement rolls. So that's just something to keep in mind. Looking at the end game armor, we have a few things to do. And by few, I mean like 3. Well, 4. Say 4. The first one is just full on, or just like a full Gore Magala set. And what makes the full Gore Magala set good is mainly the set bonus. Because with the Gore Magala set, the level 2 set bonus inflicts you with Frenzy, and if you recover from it, you gain a damage boost. The level 1 set bonus does not do that, it just gives you Frenzy. However, it's still good to make like 2 pieces of the Gore Magala set and do like a mix set, because even though you don't get the attack boost from the set bonus, the Gore Magala set comes with the skill Coalescence. And what Coalescence does is whenever you recover from a blight or some abnormal status or whatever, you get a big increase in your elemental damage and status buildup. So really just good extra damage increase. But the full Gore set is really good, and having like 2 pieces is also really good. So pretty good armor set. The next 2 pretty solid armor sets are the last, or are the only, well, not the only one, but like the only really good rarity 8 armors, which are the Arcveld armor and the Guardian Arcveld armor. So with the Arcveld armor, what makes it good is, well, honestly, a few things. First is the set bonus. The set bonus for Arcveld's armor is pretty comfy. because it basically just gives you health back as you're attacking a monster. So it's lifesteal, basically. It does say that the recovery varies by weapon, and I haven't really used it with Charge Blade, so I don't know 100% how good it is, but it sounds like it's pretty solid, in my opinion. The Arcveld set also has level 3 weakness exploit, or the alpha version has level 3 weakness exploit, which is really good. But it also comes with 2 new skills, which are Convert Element and Elemental Absorption. What Convert Element does is whenever you take elemental damage, you get increased dragon damage. So a really good skill if you're using a dragon weapon, because then your dragon weapons will hit a lot harder. The other skill, Elemental Absorption, whenever you take elemental damage, you just get increased elemental attack, and depending on which element you got hit with, so fire, water, thunder, ice, or dragon, you gain 8 extra resistance to that element. So if you get hit by like a Rathian's fireball, you gain 8 extra fire resistance. So just a really nice like defensive armor set. And that's the same, or the same is true for the Guardian Arcveld armor set, which I think is a little bit better, mainly because the Guardian Arcveld armor set comes with Flayer level 5. And like I mentioned before, I believe, what makes Flayer good is it makes it easier to create wounds. And with wounds, you do more damage. Your weakness exploit gives you extra crit, which the Guardian Arcveld armor has. And the Guardian Arcveld's armor set bonus gives you a big amount of health back whenever you pop the wound with the focus attack. So personally, I prefer the Guardian Arcveld armor set because I think it's just better overall. But the only downside is that the Guardian Arcveld armor set is like way harder to make because it requires like the gem from each of the apexes, which are like their rarest items, basically. So kind of a tricky armor to make, but with how the investigation system works in this game, it's not the worst thing in the world, so definitely doable. So really, really good armor set to make, in my opinion. And lastly, in terms of armor, is just mix sets, right? Where you just start mixing and matching different pieces of armor from different armor sets, because that's just kind of how Monster Hunter ends up being in the late game. While there are a lot of like really, while there are like really good like armors out there that if you wear like the entire set, you get all these cool, buffs and set bonuses and whatever, right? Like I mentioned the Gormagala armor, how its set bonus, the Black Eclipse, at level 1, it only inflicts you with Frenzy, but doesn't give you any attack boost. But at level 2, if it inflicts you with Frenzy and you recover, it gives you an attack boost. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind, right? Is like sometimes wearing just like a full armor set of one monster is good, but with the mix sets, you can kind of get creative and also end up doing more damage than just wearing like the armor set of one monster. So for example, the armor set that I'm wearing is a mixed set of Gormagala and Ebony Odogaron. I'll probably have it up on screen right now. And this set overall, I think or to me, it's been pretty good because, I get access to burst. I get access to the Gormagala set bonus, or the level 2 set bonus with the, getting inflicted with Frenzy. And I get Coalescence, so it just goes crazy, right? And because I run Poison and Paralysis weapon, I just do a lot of status buildup. It's pretty gross, honestly. It's kind of gross. But it's really good, in my opinion. I think it's good. Maybe I could switch a few things here or there, or maybe change some things around, right? Maybe I could add like since because we have 5 pieces of armor and you only need, or in my mix set I only need like 2 ebony, 2 gore. I could probably switch one of these gore pieces that I have with like another monster to get like extra stuff, but it's whatever at the end of the day. the main point is that mixed sets tend to be really good, and they also are fun to make, in my opinion, because you get to kind of find synergy in places you didn't think possible. It's very reminiscent to me, kind of like a roguelike game, which I don't really want to make this comparison because it feels kind of weird to make, but in the sense of like when you get all these like different items and stuff, and you get like these kind of like fun, like unintentional synergies with all these items. So that's what kind of building in Monster Hunter feels like, is where you get all these armors and weapons and whatever other gear, and you find fun synergy between all the gear, right? Like, oh, this piece has a skill that works really well with my weapon or with this other piece of armor, etc. So something just kind of keep in mind is that mixed sets tend to be kind of fun and tend to be stronger. As for what to make, well, I have mine that you can kind of follow. My 2-piece ebony, 2-piece gore magala. The last piece is a flex slot. You can put whatever you want. I just have like an extra gore piece, but you can really put whatever. Other than that, you just kind of get creative. I think that's kind of the fun part of Monster Hunter, is getting a little creative with your builds and, you know, testing stuff out, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. But I understand it can be a little bit annoying because, you know, you have to go and actually make all the armor sets to get creative, and that takes a lot of hunting. But that is just the nature of Monster Hunter in general. It's been like that for, how long has the series been around? Like 20 something years at this point? It's been like that since the first game, and I haven't even played the first game. So I'm assuming it's been like that, right? You just kind of, you know, put on different armor pieces, try out different weapons, see what works, see what doesn't work, and the unfortunate reality is that you have to grind. But that's what makes it fun, because all these monsters are really fun to fight and grind, and, you know, while you're fighting them, maybe you can try out new weapons and all this good stuff. So sorry for rambling, but I'm just kind of like trying to sell you on making a mixed set, because they're really fun to make, in my opinion. So to kind of end off this video, I want to talk about specifically what skills to look for on Charge Blade, and what I think are like the important skills and the less important but still kind of good skills. So like, you know, there's nothing wrong with not having them, or there's nothing wrong with running them, but there's nothing like super lost by not running them, you know? But in terms of like the important skills that I think that like you should definitely strive to add to your builds, the first one is burst. And I keep, you know, like I keep mentioning, burst is just really good because Savage Axe is always hitting a lot of hits, right? I believe every time you do like a Savage Axe hit, and, you know, you hold down the button to do like the consecutive hit, multi-hit, it's always 5 hits. So it's always just going to proc burst like instantly. So it's just, it works super good. The next one after burst that I think is actually important is critical status and critical element, because those skills just beef up your elemental damage and status buildup, so they're always really good, especially since, like I've mentioned before, paralysis is really strong in this game, so always really good to have. Now this one might not be as important, but it's really important if you're using a poison or paralysis weapon, and that's foray, because foray is just extra free damage for if you poison and paralyze a monster. And if you're not running at least level 1 foray, you're kind of trolling, not gonna lie. Like if you're using a poison or paralysis weapon and you don't have at least level 1 foray, just a little bit of trolling. All right, just a little bit. The next skill that I think is just always, I mean, this skill is just always important in any Monster Hunter game, is weakness exploit. It's just such a good armor. It's just such a good skill. Free damage, basically, because you're always going to be trying to hit the monster's weak points, right? Which is usually like their head, their tail, sometimes their wings, sometimes some other weird parts. So you're always going to be hitting those because that's where you get the most damage. And weakness exploit just gives you more damage for hitting those points. So there's no reason not to run at least level 1 of weakness exploit. However, if you can't, it's okay, right? It's not the end of the world, because, you know, the wound system in this game also gives you a lot of extra damage. So just, you know, if you can't fit weakness exploit, don't get too, you know, bent out of shape over it. The next skill that I think is important is agitator. And Just because, like I said, similar to weakness exploit, it's just free damage, because whenever you're fighting a monster, they're always going to be enraged at least once in a hunt, unless you just absolutely run them down in like 2 minutes or something. But every hunt you do, the monster you fight is going to be enraged at least once, and that's free damage you're missing out on if you don't have at least level 1 agitator. So definitely try to fit it in if you can. If you can't, once again, it's no biggie, but if you can, then do. And the last skill, which isn't a damage skill, but it's just kind of like a good multiplayer skill to have, and I really recommend having it, is flinch free. Because when you're fighting in a, you know, four-man group, 4-player group, my bad, you're definitely going to run into a lot of people who are, you know, fighting for like one spot on the monster, right? So like, you know, if you knock down a monster, you're gonna have like 3 people attacking the head at the same time, and you know, a lot of weapons in this game have a lot of like very wide sweeps and whatnot, so you'll get like, you know, and when you're hitting your fellow hunters with weapons, you'll like, you know, trip them up a little bit, and so you can't attack when you're getting like smacked around by your fellow hunters. So flinch free basically just avoids that situation, so that's definitely very recommended to have for multiplayer. Moving on to the kind of important skills. So they're really helpful, but if you don't have them, it's not the end of the world. The first one that I kind of like is load shells, because at level 2, load shells is like really good. Because what it does is whenever you have like the yellow charge on the charge blade, it gives you 5 files when you when you load your files in. And when you have red, it just gives you 5 overcharged files, which is kind of crazy, because if you remember from my first guide, overcharged files increase your file damage and they increase the duration of your shield charge. So overall, pretty nice. The next kind of important skill, but not like that important, is attack boost. Attack boost is just free extra attack. It's like just nice to have. So if you have like a build and you just have like an extra decoration slot and you don't really have anything to put in, if you have an attack boost gem, just, you know, toss it in there, right? It's always good. The next one that I think is important is if you this is really important if you're running any status weapon or elemental weapon, is their equivalent status attack up and elemental attack up, right? So like poison attack up, paralysis attack up, dragon attack up, fire attack up, etc., right? If you're running any weapon that has an element or a status effect, those are just really nice to have on top of it, to just do like extra damage and extra buildup. It's not the most necessary, especially if you're running critical status or critical elements, but it's just like the extra cherry on top to kind of do those types of weapons. The next good skill for charge blade that will like damage skill wise is artillery. And what artillery does is that it increases your file damage. So pretty nice to have, though I don't think artillery is as worth it at the moment, because I don't think any of the armors in the game at this point have artillery like built into the armor. You can only get artillery through either like weapon skills or decorations. So I don't really recommend it until we get like until they add monsters with armor that have artillery on it. So it's not like the end of the world if you don't have artillery. If you can fit it in, then do, but it's not like the end of the world. The next skill that also just like extra like damage is a critical eye and critical boost. Critical eye just increases your crit rate, and critical boost just increases the damage of your critical hits. Just super nice skills. If you can fit them, add them. If you can't, no biggie. The next 2 skills are kind of similar-ish, because they're related to your guarding. So we have guard, the skill called guard, and what guard does is that it increases your guarding capabilities. So you take like less chip damage from blocking, you take less stamina from blocking, you get knocked back, or you don't get knocked back as far from blocking. If you can fit guard into your weapon or into your build, then definitely slot it in, right? Because even though the charge blade charge shield comes with built-in guard like level 1 or 2, I don't know because they changed it, like I said. I actually never looked it up, but I'm assuming it's at least level 1. So it's not the most necessary, but it's nice to have. It's just a nice extra thing to have. And the second guard related skill is offensive guard. And what offensive guard does is if you time your guard, it doesn't have to be like a perfect guard. It just has to be like somewhat perfectly timed. You gain a extra like 15% attack boost. So just really good to have. And if you can slot it in, definitely slot it in. It works really good with Charge Blade, because you're definitely going to be in your sword and shield mode a lot and doing like your perfect guards into, you know, Savage Axe mode. So it's just like nice extra damage to have on top of everything. The next really decent skill that's more like utility is Power Prolonger. And what Power Prolonger does is this, it makes your charged, it makes all the charged parts of your charge blade, so the charge shield, the charge axe, whatever, they just stay powered up longer. So you don't have to like worry about them, you know, running out quickly. It's just a decent skill, not like the most necessary, just nice, comfy. The next two skills are good, but they're kind of hard to use. Or one of them is kind of hard to use. The other one, I just don't know the conditions. And it's always been kind of like a weird skill to use. The first one that's just hard to use is Maximum Might. And what Maximum Might does is it increases your crit rate if your stamina is kept full for a period of time. What that means is that if your stamina is like full, after like a few seconds, you're just gonna, it'll just activate for like, you know, it'll just activate. You'll get like that extra affinity for like another, for like some set period of time. I don't know how long Maximum Might stays active, but it's kind of hard to use on Charge Blade, mainly because you're going to be blocking a lot, and blocking chips your stamina down. So it's not like the most useful, but if you literally have like nothing else to fit in, it's just nice to have on top of everything. So it doesn't hurt, you know. And the next skill that I said is also kind of like hard / weird to use, because I don't really know the conditions, and it's always been kind of a weird skill, is a Latent Power. And Latent Power has always kind of been, like I said, weird, because it has conditions you have to meet to activate it, but it never specifies what those conditions are. But I believe that, and it seems like the conditions change with every game, I think. I'm not too sure what it is in this game, but I believe it usually is after you take like a certain amount of damage, it activates, and then it only stays active for like a few minutes or something like that. I don't know 100%. So it's not bad per se, but I feel like if you're going to use Latent Power, then you should just run the Ray Dow armor, because the Ray Dow armor, similar to like the Oda-Garen armor, it like synergizes with Latent Power. Like how the Oda-Garen armor synergizes with Burst. Because the Ray Down armor, I think, makes Latent Power last longer, and I think also the same thing, just gives like an extra damage on top of the Latent Power activation. So it's fine, I guess. I'm just like bringing it up as like if you don't have anything to slot in to your decorations and you have a Latent Power gem or something, just put it in. You know, it doesn't hurt to have it. And I think that should be it. Any other like skills, stuff like handicraft or constitution or whatnot, those are all just like nice skills to have, you know. But yeah, I believe that should be it for the skills, and that should be it for the overall video. So I hope this guide was helpful, and I hope that I was able to make it as spoiler free as possible. And I hope that you learned something and enjoyed watching it. Thank you very much, and have a beautiful day.